Hello. I want to talk about my experiences with extraterrestrials, and I want to make various parts. I think 3 parts I'm going to make. This first video, I want to talk about when in my inside I could travel to other planets and have my experiences there, and it was not only me, but very often another person and sometimes 2 other persons when we went there, and we had the same situations and we saw the same things, heard the same things, and experienced the same. And I think this is going to be what it's about in this first part. In the second part, the extraterrestrials that we came to know visited us here also on Earth, and we had other experiences and more materialistics are feelable and more what could I say, clearer or something like that. And in the third part, it's even I think I would like to talk, let's see, about probably about extraterrestrials or which came out, which they were in human form, but not as extraterrestrials in that way. I don't want to say more about it now. Just when I'm going to make the video, I'm going to tell you. Okay, so I'm not native English speaker, so I have my papers here with a translation, so I try to do it for part reading. So in this first part, I had my interior experiences. And these were trips with situations seen with closed eyes, but not only for me, but some other persons also. And if you think that it is only an advent of fantasy, I tell you that seriously things have happened in our reality, so in this planet Earth, and some angels and ETs, fairies, which we met, so some angels or ETs knew things about what I did when there was no one visibly with me. And I'm shortening the text now. And the other person was inwardly on another planet, and I was very curious to join there. And it is not difficult, because I could imagine him, and so I saw him, and so I was with him on the other planet. It was a planet, we arrived there like the Caribbean Sea, very nice, and it was planet Alpha, one of 9 planets, and so they told us later it was in the 8th dimension. There were houses in the jungle, and they were open, had an oval form with thin sticks on which they stood. They had a door as an airplane door, but opened on above, and they were not afraid of theft, destruction, fraud, or violence. And I also wanted to bring that on Earth, this peace, and I would, they told later. It was then we came to a city. It was a kind of wide, futuristic city with lots of greenery in between, and we also saw a tower, high and tapering. This was an information tower. We walked in, and a man or a being was sitting in a glass booth in the entrance hallway. And as of course it was visible that we came from another planet, so to show him, I visualized around planet Earth, floating here, and this is the way you can do there. You can imagine and just materialize just so easy like that. Well, some people can do it more or some less, and some can hear or see more or less. And well, that's what I did. And so that person or that being understood, and we were waiting in a room. He was looking for three other of these extraterrestrials. They were coming then, and they were a bit taller than us. They were thin. They were kind of white, very white, skinny color, and big black eyes, and no lips, a small mouth, hardly any noise, nose, I think, and but also when they had no external sexual characteristics, but intuitively you could recognize them as male or female. And they were in charge of planet Earth. So another time I saw an alien in prison cell on the internet. So we, the man with whom I made these journeys, and I started a successful supernatural rescue operation. And I believe I found out, and you will hear when I go on, that the so-called extraterrestrials adapt very flexibly to our imagination and to the stuff that we are doing researches for, and derive events and insights from whatever impresses us and steer us further in their direction away from reality. So this liberated ET was back to his planet, and I thought after a short time that I would like to see him again, how he's doing and what he's doing, and to know him. And since we had seen him before, and we had to do all we had to do was imagine him, and we could both go to him, as I told before. That was quite nice so far. We talked a bit. His name was Ixlon, and that was the planet Turak, and we were back on Earth again. He was also white in color, in total very similar to the ETs of planet Alpha, but shorter, like a child of about 10 years, and his face was wider. I want to mention some names of these ETs, names of angels or planets that eventually or probably someone recognizes them, has heard of it also, and so, well, make your conclusions. And quickly then I heard kind of warning statement inside, and that voice said to me one phrase: "He's not what you think." And I thought, funny, I haven't thought anything about him. I wondered, only he is nice, that's all. And but that was what it is about. That was the real hint. He is nice. The only thing I thought was not as I thought. He was not really nice. Well, and so they pretended now something really crazy, because kind of they knew it or something. They wanted to change that I would not, I would change my view or something like that, and nothing about he's not what you think, he's not what you think. And so they made up that he was homosexual. So of course I had no imagination of this or thoughts of that or anything like this, and so of course that was not what I thought. Okay, no problem, no danger, everything's okay. So just made up like this, clarified. But then I have to tell you, I got also 3 nightmares in that time, and it was in one night, and all the 3 nightmares were about aliens. And this, thank God, I normally don't suffer of nightmares. So I want to tell you about them, share it. The first one, I was looking out of the window. On the opposite was a building, and on to the right, at right angles was another big building, and it has a large two-winged gate, like round, half round. I knew what was behind it, and then I saw this gate opening. Behind it was a whole army of aliens. They were more like rectangulars, about 1 meter high. I don't know, English measures is about up to my stomach, in the middle of it, the high. And they all marched off, slowly but continuously, unstoppable. So even so, if someone would have run after a short time out of breath, they would still come and come and come. So that was just that brief situation. And the second one, I was in a parking garage. I hid hunched over behind the rear window of a parked car, trying to hide, and looked at the door of the stairwell because aliens were about to come. And then they came out, 1, 2, or 3. These had more human features, slender, naked, and rather white in skin color, the same, so like the one of type Alpha or the other ones, more or less like that. And they came. End of the second stream. And the third one, I was lying on a mattress, and next to me was a sliding door. I had closed it. There was a shapeless or arbitrarily changing mass, and it came through under the door. Again, unstoppable. This crowd came on me, and I woke up screaming. In fact, this dream was the most terrifying of all, even if it might not sound like this, perhaps as I felt something, but that was not of them. However, immediately after I woke up, I did not turn to God in a prayer or to Jesus Christ, as it probably could have been a good idea, but it was actually like a psychological thriller. I turned directly to a so-called archangel. The name was Anael, the angel of love, because we had connections also to angels inwardly. And I said, they're not allowed to do that. They're not allowed to do that. Take care of me. And I mentioned it as a psychological thriller because later I found out he was one of them in other appearing. And yet I didn't see any connection with the so nice aliens we have already met on planet Alpha and planet Turak, with whom a contact, a relationship was already about to begin. So we went to the liberated ET on his home planet, which was a hollow planet. I had read something about that in the internet that was very interesting, and so it was there. As I mentioned, they like to pick up these researchers, and they know they can see these kind of things that you are doing, and if you start more or less the contact, the more they know what you're doing and involve kind of it. I noticed it like that. So on the outside, the planet was completely bare, but we made it green and habitable, together with teams of his friends and those who were destined to join in. I had done a lot of research to find out what kind of plants and animals we could use there. And also we did it on other planets and brought new life as row dances on squares, playgrounds we made imaginative. We created or we manifested horses and rode together, and we also made some dolphins and had some excursions with them and swam with them. And meantime here on this earth, also when we had some also contacts with fairies, they also what is the name? Well, they encouraged us to materialize. And once I was with that man sitting in a park, and he had a slice of a piece of pizza, and was not very tasteful. And so I thought, well, I put some salt on it. And so he said, wow, now it's good. And so it had really changed. That was the kind of way in which we were. Now, I want to tell you an insert about something very important that had happened. You might think I'm changing the subject, but later you can find out that I'm not. At the same time, I started to see more and more videos about my dear Jesus on the internet. I slowly began to understand the message of the gospel, which is recognizing that one is a sinner, sincere repentance, confessing sin before God, asking God, it's the same as Jesus Christ, for forgiveness, and recognizing that He took upon Himself our guilt on the cross. He bore our punishment in our stead. He died in our place. He rose again on the third day. And to take Him into your life. Just in a prayer, I had finally almost recognized the gospel as being true and right and important, but although I already went out to evangelize in this fantasy planetary world to extraterrestrials or some witches or whatever creatures we met there, I already went out for evangelizations, but I myself, I had not yet accepted this for myself at that time in a sincere prayer. Since I had not yet received the Holy Spirit, I mixed some things with salvation plans and deliverances and healings and being friend with several other beings, etc. This is astonishing, but it also might happen. So it has to be accepted personally. And so we also built already some temples and we were singing there together. Often we traveled through portals which had colors, for example, silver or gold, or others we traveled, for example, to other planets. And they were inscribed with mysterious signs. On some planets there were lakes or sources of, for example, health, cleanliness, happiness, and so on, and where one could bath with mentioned results, or not, I would say. Perhaps in one moment you're happy with it, but then it's not. So it seems like a mixture with esoterics. And by the way, also the other man and me, we traveled sometimes in other lifetimes, in so-called other incarnations from before, in other lands, other times, and so that's when we also heard an inner hint like, do you remember? Like that. So several times we were also through one of these gates in heaven together. The extraterrestrials and us. There we were in silent temples and saw arch and aunt, simple angels, and we even met a so-called Jesus. The first aliens in heaven, an honor, merit, grace, gift to be there. Said an angel of purity and clarity, white or mother of pearl or silver, glittering and shiny. Always very, very nicely feeding the ego, you are something very special, privileged, chosen. And yeah, this is the very good place in heaven, they said. For most people, it sounds totally crazy to come up with something like that and to take part in it. This is a deception. It is not for nothing that the Bible says that Satan is a deceiver and a liar, and he deceives in many ways. And the deceived, to whom everything is also adapted, does not notice the deception and participates. Then, as I said, there is often praise or amazement about maturity, insight, and then considerations that one is ready for even more or greater things or works. And often it's about something like that, which you can help in a selected way with such good and world-saving measures. It gives us the feeling to be useful, helpful, needed, great, and also to have adventure, of course. And for example, as I mentioned before, in my story, we were several people, at least sometimes me alone, or two or three. And so how could you think this is not true if we all could experience it? So who wants to believe that he is deceived and stop? And there, I'm coming nearly to the end now, there was also a planet F on which hell was installed as a betterment planet or school. Inside that also hollow planet, according to descriptions of several videos where different persons would have seen and described hell. So I and another ET, we materialized it. I was terrified, and to hear all of it and to visualize it, what I've heard of their experiences, of near-death experiences or whatsoever. And but I had to, in order to manifest it, so that hell would not longer exist on earth, but it would be outsourced. So I was willing to do so, suffering, but if it were for a good cause. So what? But I always ask in a prayer that, so please God, it should only happen if you want, if you agree with it. If not, please excuse me, forgive me, and do not anything of it, or something like that. And but also I knew that an archangel or archangels would have taken a last look over it when it was finished to make some needy corrections. Outside on the planet, a barren landscape has been filled with manifested many small caves to live in, animals for wool and little water, a few plants to eat, something like that, probably for the ones that repented in hell, or for not so bad ones or similar. So, in the meantime, I had a lot of program, almost every day, often several hours, greening planets, including streams, waters, animals, creating parks, building cities, playgrounds, inventing fun adventure parks, organizing excursions, festivals, dances, or delegating and training, singing in the temple, and previously doing research in the internet of all of that, picking out ideas and also the songs, evangelizing, healing. And I also met once a week with it goes on strange, with the deceased Princess Diana, to go through my weekly schedule with her, in which we, an ET, me, and various archangels, angels, and partly also an alleged Jesus. In this world, we would still free everything from evil and help and bless through intercession, light sendings, opening hearts, neutralizing electrosmog and dangerous stuff. And I had large lists of what to change and not what to neutralize, and so on, and how to change hearts of politicians, and so on, and pharma industrial, and what more. And there was also a training once a week in which I no longer consciously participated, but where only something of me supposedly went there inwardly. So that was it for now from my experiences from my inner journeys that I had, and other persons had also with me. And I once had read something in the internet about greening planets before. Perhaps that was also taken for me to do it, but probably these extraterrestrials, or so-called extraterrestrials, also you joined with them to do it also, or other people. So, well, this was one thing, the first part I wanted to tell you about it. And the next part is how the events, about the events with the aliens here on Earth. So I ask you, if you want, please take a look of it and edit and take care of you. Remember the gospel that I explained. Because of these extraterrestrials, I want to tell you something in the next video, that they are not as how they seem, how they look like, and that many are deceived by them. Okay, so I wish you God's blessings, and goodbye for now.